I call upon the Deputy Premier.
Here it is. Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill, BVI Business Companies Amendment Bill 2024, has passed through committee with amendments. Where is it? Madam Speaker, I move that the bill entitled BVI Business Companies Amendment Bill 2024 be read a third time and passed as amended.
Thank you.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled BVI Business Companies Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a third time and passed as amended. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
This bill may be cited as the BVI Business Companies Amendment Bill 2024.
The bill has been read a third time and passed with amendments. I call upon the Deputy Premier and Minister for Financial Services, Labor and Trade to move a motion.
Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, I move that Standing Order 62 be suspended to allow for the bill shortly entitled Trustee Amendment Bill 2024 to be read a second time.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. Honorable Member, could you tell me, Honorable Deputy Premier, could you tell me if Clause 52 is applicable at this time?
Madam Speaker, it's 1 day more. It depends on how we depends on whether you're talking about 4 calendar days or 4 working days. So, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, 4 calendar days.
It's not less than 4 days shall elapse between the first and second.
So, Madam Speaker, we are speaking about 4 calendar days, in which case I move straight to asking your permission for the bill entitled BVI the Trustee Amendment Bill 2024 to be read a second time. Madam Speaker, with your permission, I will proceed to explain its provisions.
Proceed, please.
Madam Speaker, I am pleased to present this bill and to explain its provisions. This bill reflects our ongoing commitment to enhancing the regulatory framework governing trusts within our jurisdiction, ensuring compliance with international standards, and addressing the specific recommendations outlined in the CFATF's Mutual Evaluation Report. Madam Speaker, the amendments we propose today are crucial in fortifying the territory's anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism regime, particularly in the trust sector. The Trustee Act serves as the foundation of trust regulation in the Virgin Islands, and the proposed amendments focus on two critical areas identified in the Mutual Evaluation Report. These amendments will directly impact Sections 92A and 92B of the Principal Act, strengthening the obligations on trustees and enhancing the transparency and accountability of trust operations. Section 92A, Madam Speaker, of the Principal Act is amended to introduce and define key terms essential to the effective regulation of trusts, including beneficial owner information, and information on the beneficial owner. These definitions are foundational to the new FATF requirements and ensure clarity and consistency in the application of the law. The most significant change comes with the introduction of Section 92B, a new provision that mandates trustees of applicable trusts to collect, maintain, and update beneficial ownership information. This section imposes a duty on trustees to take reasonable steps to verify the identities of beneficial owners, ensuring that the information is accurate, adequate, and up to date. Trustees are also required to update this information promptly whenever there is a change in the beneficial owner or any related details. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, Section 92B outlines the responsibilities of trustees to cooperate with competent authorities and law enforcement agencies in the lawful discharge of their functions. This includes the provision of information, documents, and other relevant material necessary for investigations or compliance with regulatory obligations. Importantly, while the Act emphasizes transparency, it also preserves the legal professional privilege, ensuring that trustees are not compelled to disclose privileged information except under specific circumstances where such privilege is not applicable. The introduction of penalties for non-compliance under Section 92B further underscores the seriousness of these obligations. Trustees who fail to adhere to these requirements without reasonable excuse may face fines of up to $75,000, reflecting the importance of maintaining accurate and timely records of beneficial ownership. To conclude, Madam Speaker, the Trustee Amendment Bill 2024 is a critical component of our broader legislative efforts to align with global AML CFT standards. By enacting these amendments, we enhance the integrity of our trust industry, protect the reputation of the Virgin Islands as a premier Financial Services Center, and we demonstrate our unwavering commitment to combating financial crime. Madam Speaker, I urge all members of this honorable House to support this bill and contribute to the ongoing efforts to strengthen our regulatory framework and to safeguard our financial system in doing so. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. Members, the floor is now open for debate. Any member wish to debate? If not, I'll call on the Deputy Premier to wrap up. Deputy Premier, please wrap up.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the second of 5, in fact 6 pieces of legislation. One will be brought by the Premier later on, that, as I've said before, will enable us to comply with the comply with the requirements of the Financial Action Task Force, and also in keeping with our National Action Plan to which we are committed. And I'm looking forward to the debate or the discussions and any amendments during the committee stage. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Trustee Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
This bill may be cited as Trustee Amendment Bill 2024.
Pursuant to Standing Order 55-1 of the House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands, the bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to consider it clause by clause. House is now in committee.
I now call on the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Trustee Amendment Bill 2024 has passed through committee without amendments. Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill entitled Trustee Amendment Bill 2024 be read a third time and passed without amendments. And passed.
Mr. Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled Trustees Amendment Bill 2024 has now been read a third time and passed. Those in favor? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
This bill may be cited as Trustee Amendment Bill 2024.
I now call upon the Deputy Premier. Call upon the clerk. My apologies. I call upon the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time.
Mr. Speaker, under the objection reasons.
Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I would like to explain briefly the objects and reasons. Mr. Speaker, this legislation represents a significant step forward in fortifying the regulatory framework that underpins our financial services sector, ensuring its resilience, integrity, and stability by aligning with international standards. The Banks and Trust Companies Act is the cornerstone of our regulatory regime for the banking and trust industry. It establishes the rules of engagement, safeguards the interests of investors and customers, and upholds the stability of our financial system. The amendments proposed today are not a radical overhaul, but rather targeted enhancements designed to address specific areas where improvements are needed. The first key amendment pertains to the definition of trust business in Section 2 of the Principal Act. As the global financial landscape evolves, so do the structures and arrangements used by individuals and businesses. The bill expands the definition of trust business to encompass a broader range of activities, ensuring that our regulatory oversight keeps pace with these changes. This expansion will enhance transparency and mitigate risks associated with novel financial arrangements. The second amendment addresses the crucial matter of deposit insurance. Specifically, Mr. Speaker, in Section 28 of this Act. The bill mandates that new banking license applicants provide proof of deposit insurance within a specified time frame. This measure reinforces the safety net for depositors, bolstering confidence in our banking system and promoting financial stability. While these amendments may seem technical, they have significant positive implications for our community and our financial services industry. Strengthening our regulatory framework sends a clear message to the world that the BVI is committed to upholding the highest standards of transparency and integrity. This commitment fosters trust among investors, attracts reputable businesses, and creates opportunities for sustainable economic growth. Mr. Speaker, for our local community, these amendments translate to greater protection for depositors, enhanced stability in the financial system, and a more robust regulatory environment that safeguards against illicit activities. They also contribute to the ongoing development of our financial services industry, ensuring that it remains competitive and resilient in the face of global challenges. In summary, Mr. Speaker, the Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024 is a testament to our commitment to maintaining a world-class financial services sector. It reflects our proactive approach to adapting to evolving global standards and our unwavering dedication to protecting the interests of our community. Mr. Speaker, this is the second of several amending bills related to the financial services industry that are being presented to this Honorable House during this sitting. These legislative amendments are designed to bring the Virgin Islands into alignment with the standards set by the CFATF, as I've said before. The CFATF Mutual Evaluation Report on the Virgin Islands is a comprehensive assessment of the territory's compliance with international standards for combating money laundering and terrorist financing. The most recent evaluation report scrutinizes the effectiveness of the BVI's legal framework, its regulatory oversight, and the preventive measures. In response to the mutual evaluation report, the BVI has developed an action plan that outlines the specific steps we are taking to address identified deficiencies and strengthen our anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism regime. The action plan includes legislative reforms, enhanced supervision, and capacity building initiatives. Timely implementation of the Mutual Evaluation Report Action Plan is crucial for several reasons. One, it demonstrates tangible progress and a proactive approach to addressing identified weaknesses. Two, it is crucial for maintaining the BVI's standing as a reputable international financial center, and failure to address mutual evaluation report recommendations could lead to reputational damage and potential sanctions. Thirdly, a robust AML-CFT regime safeguards the integrity and stability of the global financial system. And fourthly, a strong AML-CFT framework instills confidence in investors and businesses, attracting legitimate capital and promoting economic growth. In essence, Mr. Speaker, the timely implementation of the BVI's Mutual Evaluation Report Action Plan is not merely a compliance exercise, but a strategic imperative. It is a demonstration of the territory's resolve to uphold international standards, protect its financial system, and maintain its reputation as a leading financial center. With this in mind, Mr. Speaker, again, I urge all members of this Honorable House to support this bill and to join in strengthening the BVI's economic resilience. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
The floor is now open for debate. I call on the leader of the opposition.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I didn't speak on the bill before the trust amendment bill because we were sent here to try to help our people to make progress and build wealth. You know, generational, young people never talk about generational wealth. So I am here to, and I know the Deputy Premier know my song. We're talking about the Bank and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024. It has three clauses, but the Deputy Premier read out about 10 pages on what's supposed to happen here. I've been around for some half a century, quarter century, dealing with financial services. And the goalposts continue to shift. The goalpost is not staying stationary. And if we want to keep the business to help build a country, we have to shift with the goalposts. But while we shift with the goalposts, I don't think, Mr. Chairman, that we should be, so to speak, tightening the noose around our local businesses and local people's neck. Because let's take the banks, Mr. Chairman. Any one of us in here cannot say we're pleased with banking in this country. If we expect our economy to grow, if we expect our young people to make progress in this country by building small businesses and so forth and so on, the bank has to play their role like they played in the past. Today they are not, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, even the retirees, the older and the older people. Mr. Speaker, sorry, Mr. Speaker. You know, I never disrespect the chair, so regardless of who in it, I live by the rule. You know, I believe this is the most important institution in the country because we were elected by the people. The people sent us here to look after their affairs. And our job is to respect the chair, Mr. Speaker, so I mean no disrespect. Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, you know, when I was growing up in this country, the banks used to rush you and pay you to keep your money. Keep your money, give you interest, reasonable interest on your money. Today we got to pay the bank to keep our money. And I know we have to do some of this stuff because the FIA, the Financial Action Task Force, the CFATF, and the IMF, and all the alphabet soup, letters soup, they out there, and they want us to do all of these stuff. And we are doing them. We have been doing them for the last 25 plus years. And it seems like it's not getting any easier. You know, I can go to the States as a foreigner right now and open a bank account the same day. Here, it takes us a year, sometimes more, sometimes people can't get it, you know. And all of us have this experience in this country. And if we get in that level of experience, imagine the smaller people out there, you know. So while we do these things to keep the international business part of our economy moving, we got to do some concentration on our local banking business. As far as you're concerned, the banks, do we have banks here now? No, we need to ask ourselves a hard question. I know they're going to talk They're going to talk about correspondent banking, and if you a bank here, the Caribbean is a high risk place for banking and all sorts of stuff. But, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, we have to try to find a solution to some of our banking issues in this country. We need to get investment in banking in this country. We have to get it. I look back, Mr. Speaker, I look back years ago when the banks used to be helping people to build things. Now, with what is happening in the country today, the banks are happy to sell everybody's stuff. And Mr. Speaker, I don't know how much longer the country could afford to do some of the stuff that could sustain some of the stuff that is happening. We cannot just come here and look, yeah, it's how much million? 190 or $200 million financial services. We need the money. We need the money to fix our infrastructure, fix our education system, fix our healthcare system. We need the money, but we have to spend some time trying to find ways and means on how to make sure the future of local businesses and belongers are sustainable. Because right now it look real big to me. Young people building wealth in this country, it's going to be extremely difficult. People, we used to build homes because we have equity build up, Mr. Chairman, in the homes, and we can use that equity build up to do something, a business or something. Now we're not going to be able to afford some of the homes anymore, because between the banks, the insurance companies, and if you want to protect yourself from somebody coming to your home and slipping down a step and hurting themselves and they're being sued, you have to insure your home. You have to have some kind of liability for your home. And people cannot afford to do this stuff, and I don't know if we're understanding that it's very difficult in the country. People worry about who live in apartment, but apartment owners don't have any choice. They don't have any choice but to carry up the rents on these properties. Because when you're going to have a property, apartment building, and your insurance on it is $30,000 a year and that kind of stuff, And I use my own. That's why I could say that it's very difficult out there for young people to build homes, and after they finish building a home, they're not going to have the disposable income to insure that home. It is real. These things are real in this country. Before the hurricane, I was paying $5,000-something $100 for my insurance for my house. Now it's $22,000. All the money that I had to give away to people who come and ask me for help, I got to give it to the insurance company. No, this is real. This is real thing. So anybody who's building a house now think that's it. When you get an insurance bill, you're gonna have an issue. So, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Premier, please, you gotta find a solution. We cannot, all generations way back, you can see what they build, all of this stuff. Now you're going to leave your children and grandchildren, can't do nothing in a country that they call home. This is serious. I ain't speak on the trust basis because I know, based on what's happening, we ain't got the money to open a trust. So we got to do will. We got to do will and what other things. We're going to make sure we pass on whatever you have to. And they're not going to be able to afford to keep it. That is the troubling part of it. Don't take this word lightly, you know. Pass your house over to your grandchild and see if you could afford to keep it. The insurance alone, you're gonna tell him he can't keep it. These are real problems in this country, and we got to find solutions to them. You know. So, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, well, the bill has 3 clauses, and they're not contentious clauses. It's one good thing in it is the deposit insurance, which I saw some articles on it, and I was happy to see this because it seemed like this was approved back in when I was sitting on the site, 2016. We were on the side when this was approved, but now it's coming to fruition, so better late than never. But you're hearing about it. What's the levels of insurance on these things? Is it $100,000 like the FIDC, Federal Insurance Deposit? Is it the same thing? Because I haven't seen any documentation of what it's supposed to be for each account. So you have $100,000 for each account. So all we can do is you need to educate your people that do not keep an account in the bank over $100,000. It's yeah, well, the Minister of Finance needs to bring the document and lay it on the table so we could have, an official document that we all could look at. You know, but no, this is one good thing I see here in the document. So this is good. This is a good thing that is happening in this country. So the trust business. I don't know if Mr. Chairman, Mr. Speaker, why are you calling me Mr. Chairman out there? Mr. Speaker, I don't know what we got, Mr. Speaker, I don't know what we're going to do about the banking system in this country. Because basically you only have one bank, or 2 banks out there that's trying to do anything in terms of investment in this country. You know, I believe that in order to jumpstart the economy or something, the Minister of Finance is going to have to go borrow monies from those 2 banks and give it to the development bank so that they can lend monies to something or go to the National Development Bank, go to the BRICS countries. They're giving up billions of dollars now. Find money someplace to put in your development bank, and so that we can jumpstart the economy. We have to do something. We have to get our bank by now. That bank should have been able to do much more than it's doing. You know, and I think it's possible, but we just got to do it. We got to get, Mr. Speaker, Deputy Premier, banking is a big issue in this country right now. You need to call your whiz kids together and find out what can happen. You got to think outside the box. As a matter of fact, don't think outside the box, they'll throw the box. Don't have no box. We got to find solutions. It's possible for people in trouble, you know, and we need to help them. So with those few words, Mr. Speaker, you know, I don't have any amendments to this bill, but I will recommend. It's a simple bill, you know. So you have my support for it, but I need you to do something about banking in this country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Any other member? I call on the Deputy Premier to wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank Mr. Speaker, you caused it. I thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I do thank the Leader of the Opposition for his comments. I am very pleased that he acknowledges the importance of the deposit insurance that will give a great degree of comfort to persons making deposits and using our banking system. It may have been around since 2016 or past then, but it really only took effect within the last couple of months. So we're very pleased to introduce that. And yes, it took me a little while to explain the provisions of this very short amendment because of the importance of our banking system. I'd like to say, Mr. Speaker, that I am and I continue to be fully engaged with our banks, especially as it relates to our small and medium-sized enterprises. And we may consider the progress that has been made to be small steps, but there has been significant, as far as I'm concerned, progress. There is one of our leading banks that has established a facility in the amount of, I think it's $500,000 for small businesses. Another that continues to provide, in some cases, loans that are, what's the word I'm looking for? That provide loans and training and support to our small businesses. And yet another of our commercial banks will be has established a facility for small businesses in the amount of, in fact, what they call unincorporated businesses in the amount of $1 million. The details of how that will work, these are being worked out, but I continue to be engaged with the banks, and I'm very grateful to them for the support that they have given. And Mr. Speaker, I'd like to make it clear that this progress only happened after our historic banking expo that we held about 3 months ago. I accept the point that the Leader of the Opposition made in relation to banking on a bigger scale in terms of making sure that the economy continues to grow as a result of our access to banking finance. And as a businessman, I know that the Leader of the Opposition is very much aware of the challenges that are faced in this area. I know that he's aware that one of the leaders in the Caribbean, in fact, the Prime Minister of Antigua, has been leading the charge to see what can be done. And of course, what we've come up against is the absence of correspondent banking. And I do agree with him that we have to continue to find a solution for investments as it relates to our banking community. I'd like to say that last week I signed on the dotted line for a trade license for one of our leading banks, and this is a global bank. I said a trade license because it was not of, I hope it's the first step in getting this bank to move to the British Virgin Islands and to expand the services that it provides now globally. But as I said, it's a first step. It's a simple trade license for them to provide certain administrative services. But it's a bank that, Mr. Speaker, the BVI would love to be and continue to be affiliated with. I accept also, Mr. Speaker, the point made by the Leader of the Opposition in relation to the rising cost of insurance. I know that he understands that it's a global problem, especially in this region where we are so vulnerable to climate change, but it is cold comfort because we continue to pay through our noses, and in many instances, it's becoming unaffordable. And, Mr. Speaker, in this House, we have committed to having a national conversation with insurance companies, but not just with insurance companies, but about the whole issue of insurance. I'd like to say also that our Financial Services Commission has been seeking to find some solution to this problem, and they continue to work on it. And I'm not going to make any promises, but it is a matter that we need to actively pursue. I look forward, Mr. Speaker, to the committee stage. I'm very happy that the Leader of the Opposition does not see many changes to this, but I look forward to the committee stage in any event. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time. Those in favor? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time. Second time.
This bill may be cited as Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024.
Pursuant to Standing Order 55-1 of the House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands, this bill stands committed to a committee of the whole House to consider it clause by clause. The House is now in committee.
Sitting. I call upon the Deputy Premier.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024 has passed through committee without amendments. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill entitled Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024 be read a third time and passed.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
This bill may be cited as Banks and Trust Companies Amendment Bill 2024.
Thank you. The bill has been read a third time and passed. I now call upon the Deputy Premier, Minister of Financial Services, Labor and Trade to move a motion.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled the Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time, and with your permission, I would like to read its provisions.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, I am pleased to present this bill that reinforces our commitment to combating financial crime by addressing key deficiencies in our regulatory framework. This bill directly responds to the recommendations outlined in the Mutual Evaluation Report and further strengthens our anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism regime. The amendments proposed in this bill are centered on two key sections of the Insolvency Act, specifically sections 162 and 163. These amendments, Madam Speaker, would expand the powers of the Financial Services Commission in relation to the liquidation of companies, thereby strengthening our regulatory framework. The current provisions of sections 162 and 163 of the Principal Act empower the FSC to apply to the High Court for the liquidation of companies that are regulated by the Commission or that engage in unlicensed financial services on public interest grounds. The proposed amendments significantly expand the FSC's authority, enabling it to seek liquidation of any company regardless of regulatory status, if it is involved in or convicted of money laundering, terrorist financing, or proliferation financing. The FSC's power also extends to instances where a company breaches sanctions or embargoes, or when liquidation serves the best interests of the territory's financial services industry or the public. Furthermore, Madam Speaker, the amendments introduce new subsections 16210 and 1636, which align the definitions of money laundering, terrorist financing, and proliferation financing with those established in the Financial Investigation Agency Act. These amendments are designed to ensure that our financial services sector remain robust, transparent, and resilient in the face of global challenges. By expanding the circumstances under which the FSC can seek the liquidation of companies, we are equipping our regulatory authorities with the tools they need to act decisively against entities that threaten the integrity of our financial system. Madam Speaker, the Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 sends a clear message to local and international community. The Virgin Islands has zero tolerance for financial crime and is committed to maintaining a world-class financial services sector. By adopting these amendments, we will enhance investor confidence, attract reputable businesses, and ensure the long-term stability of our economy. Madam Speaker, again, this bill is part of a broader legislative agenda aimed at aligning the Virgin Islands with international standards and addressing the recommendations of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force. I urge all members of this House to support the Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 and to join us in strengthening our economic resilience and safeguarding the BVI's reputation as a very well-regulated jurisdiction. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
To second the motion.
Members, the floor is now open for debate. Any member wish to debate? I call upon the Deputy Premier to wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This is the fourth piece of legislation, as I said before, that is seeking to comply with the FATF requirements as well as our national action plan to which we are committed, and I look forward to any amendments made during the committee stage and to the discussion that ensues at that time. Thank you.
Members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Aye. Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
This bill may be cited as Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024.
Pursuant to Standing Order 55-1 of the House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands, the bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to consider it clause by clause. House is now in committee. The House will now resume its sitting. I call upon the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 has passed through committee without amendments. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill entitled Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 be read a third time and passed.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
This bill may be cited as Insolvency Amendment Bill 2024.
The bill has been read a third time and passed. I call upon the Deputy Premier, Minister for Financial Services, Labor and Trade to move a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Insurance Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time, and with your permission, I'd like to briefly explain its provisions.
Please proceed.
Madam Speaker, this bill aims to strengthen the regulatory framework governing our insurance sector, aligning our territory with global standards and enhancing our ability to combat financial crime. The bill addresses a specific deficiency identified in the recent CFATF Mutual Evaluation Report, particularly concerning the prevention of criminals and their associates from acquiring significant or controlling interests in financial institutions. While our current framework adequately addresses this issue for BVI insurers, it lacks the necessary oversight for foreign insurers. To rectify this, the bill proposes amendments to Section 11 of the Insurance Act, which will require foreign insurers to obtain prior approval from the FSC before making any changes to significant or controlling interests. This amendment, Madam Speaker, is crucial in preventing criminals or their associates from infiltrating our insurance sector. Moreover, Madam Speaker, Section 18 of this Act is being amended to introduce an additional safeguard by requiring foreign insurers to notify the FSC of any changes in interest holding, even those that do not meet the threshold of significant or controlling interest. This enhanced transparency will enable the Commission to maintain a comprehensive overview of ownership structures within the insurance industry, further mitigating the risk of criminal influence. In essence, the Insurance Amendment Bill 2024 will fortify the regulatory oversight of foreign insurers, ensuring that they adhere to the same stringent standards as BVI insurers. This legislative enhancement aligns our regulatory framework with international standards, thereby safeguarding the integrity and reputation of our financial services industry. By enacting this bill, we send a strong message to the international community that the BVI is resolute in its fight against money laundering and terrorist financing, reaffirming our commitment to a robust and transparent regulatory environment that fosters trust and confidence among investors and businesses. Madam Speaker, finally, I again urge all members of this Honorable House to support this bill and join us in safeguarding the future of our insurance industry and in upholding the reputation of the BVI as a responsible and well-regulated international business and finance center. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
Thank you. Members, the floor is now open for debate. Any member wish to debate? I recognize the Leader of the Opposition, Honorable Ronnie Shelton.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, there's no way in this house I could allow an insurance bill to pass without lending my 2 cents to it. Madam Speaker, the bill Insurance Amendment Bill 2024, again, this is a very short bill. It has 2 parts. And as the mover of the bill, the Premier said, it is to protect our insurance institutions from fraud and money launderers and all the various illicit businesses and people who want to infiltrate insurance companies. But Madam Speaker, while we fight the fight, the good fight of protecting the insurance business from fraudsters, we also got to pay attention to the service it gives to legitimate taxpayers who are trying to run businesses, build homes, and build equity for their families. Madam Speaker, I don't know what the solution is, but I know there is a solution. We need to find a way to stop the level of premiums that insurance companies are charging, especially retirees with fixed income that has a home. Madam Speaker, it is, again, I can't stress it enough, it's a burden. You know, besides the retirees and the older people, I am not even including the middle and the young. The older people have worked all their life, and when you pass a certain age, you will get sick. And so you use your resources to stay well, and on top of this, you have the insurance premiums that they cannot afford, and it's getting a bit difficult for a lot of them. The same government retirees, if you know. So we got to find a solution, and I know there is a solution out there. We have to find it. Whether or not the government should hands off, create their own insurance company with a way to just say, you know, when you insure with this insurance company, we are only responsible for 50% of the claim until you can build equity in the system. I don't know what the solution is. I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I know there is a solution. There must be a solution to the problem that we are facing in this country. And I know you, to make me feel good, you're going to tell me this is happening all over the world. Yeah, I understand that, but the corresponding banks, it was happening all over the world, and the BRICS countries got together and tried to create a different pathway for financial institutions and countries to develop. So there must be a solution out there, and it calls for some of our risk kids, the same set of risk kids that sit here with us, to come up with a solution to our problem, because there must be one, and we will have to find it. You know, we cannot afford for you have a basket of wealth, and this one institution, insurance, is taking all, and it's not even staying here, because it's going all the way back to reinsurance and all kind of stuff. So we need a solution, and I know we have to find it. That's all I know, because this is unsustainable. Like I said, I understand the Premier is building a house now, You know, when you get an insurance bill, then you're gonna understand what I understand it's a nice palace. When you get an insurance bill, then it's gonna come straight home to you. So it's important, Madam Speaker, that we as the people in the government find a solution to these problems. And we have to. Otherwise, a lot of us, families, friends, gonna be destroyed. With those few words, Madam, I thank you. Madam Speaker, I thank you.
Thank you. I call upon the member for the 6th District, Honorable Myron Walwin.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, so I have to rise, lend my voice as well to this particular piece of legislation. And I do understand what the legislation is doing in the broader context as raised by the leader of the opposition. I want to recommend, Madam Speaker, that some sort of committee, if it doesn't exist, be formed to look at this matter very seriously, the matter of insurance costs. And as the leader of the opposition said before, and all of us who own properties, whether you're, or even if you're renting, you would have recognized that your renting went up exponentially after Hurricanes Irma and Maria. For years, insurance companies were getting their monies. We didn't have any issues here, no hurricanes of any great magnitude to cause much damage. But two category 5 hurricanes caused, in some instances, as was said before, and I can attest to it, for those persons, for instance, who own apartment buildings, for the insurance to double. And of course, the owner of the apartment building has to pass the cost on to the tenants. And there are some landlords who are actually holding and absorbing a significant portion of that cost because they cannot put it on to the tenants, because the tenants simply cannot afford it. It's a serious matter. And even when you look at the cost of living in this country, rent is perhaps the largest influencer of cost of living. So even as well-intentioned, Madam Chair, as the Deputy Premier's, Madam Speaker, as the Deputy Premier's intention to raise the minimum wage, this is another way where that little money that those people just got, because you could just raise your rent if you want to raise your rent, and in some cases, you have to raise the rent. So the little raise gone in the rent money. Whatever it is we have to do, we have to find a way to address this issue, because it's going to continue to be one of those factors that continue to raise the cost of living in the Virgin Islands, and I don't think that is something that we want. Particularly young people who might want to get off from under their mother's roof or their father's roof, and they want to go get an apartment. Can't afford to do it on the salary that you're making. You're making $2,000, $2,200 a month. To get a modest 2-bedroom apartment to rent in the Virgin Islands is about $1,500. And you're going to live off the rest, the $700 for a month? That's unsustainable. That's unsustainable. So we really do have to, whatever it takes, find a way to get this issue addressed so that we can find a way to control the cost of insurance in this country, because it has serious implications, serious socio-economic implications that we cannot avoid. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I recognize a member for the 2nd District, Honorable Melvin Turnbull.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, it is going to sound very repetitive, but I have to lend my voice. I first want to state that I am in support of the bill, but I have to lend my voice as well with the leader of the opposition and the member for the 6th to state that while we are ensuring that we are doing our part to mitigate and deter any criminal activity and illegal activity within the insurance world or insurance field within our territory, Madam Speaker, or those companies that do businesses with insurances in our territory, that we safeguard what we have and the interests of and businesses of those that have them. And Madam Speaker, for my limited experience in the insurance field, which started back in 2002, shortly after I graduated from college, it is one thing that I have seen, especially since I moved home in 2005, the rates of insurance increase in the BVI specifically from 2005 up until 2013, both in the health insurance as well as the home and property insurance, were on an increase on an average of I think it was about 8.2 to 8.5% each year. 2017 happened, Madam Speaker, which for all companies that felt the effect of Hurricane Irma and Maria here in the territory, they were forced, some even forced to close down, and I am aware of that. But they were forced to deal with calling basically their reinsurers, because the insurance company has insurance as well. And they were forced to call in their reinsurers to deal with the claims that individuals and companies and businesses would have had. But Madam Speaker, there's something that continues to happen, even after the hurricanes of 2017, and I'm talking about insurance not just from a property standpoint, I'm talking about insurance even on the life side, that everything has increased exponentially and everything continues to increase, Madam Speaker, to a point where it is unaffordable for persons. We heard the stories of persons after the hurricanes where people were underinsured. And I would usually be the one to say, a lot of times what we find in this territory as compared to what I was used to with AIG is we're usually sold a premium that the insurance companies are comfortable with, rather than being sold what we actually need. But this term underinsurance was the term that was circulated heavily after the hurricanes. And you go from examples of persons, Madam Speaker, having insurance premiums, and I'll use on property because that's the most significant increase that we see. Some persons would have been paying $1,200 to $1,500, maybe $2,000 for insurance, and now it has gone up to over $10,000. And Madam Speaker, every year it's going to go up. And especially for those persons, Madam Speaker, who are tied to a banking institution, where you have to keep your insurance up to date, else you would fall in default with your banking institutions, which then would lead to you possibly not being able to own your home because the bank will put it up, put you in foreclosure, Madam Speaker, or in default, and then you end up in the possible situation where you can lose your home. Madam Speaker, it is something that we need to address. I know this law and this amendment that we're doing now is not set to do that. But as the leader opposition and the member for the 6th state, and I know the deputy premier is well aware of, it is something that has to be looked at. I'm not sure if the insurance association still exists within this territory, but it is not just for the insurance associations. We need to have the conversations with their reinsurers, with their underwriting company, Madam Speaker, to see what can be done on a whole scale basis to try to address these issues. Because, Madam Speaker, even after Tropical Storm Ernesto, we see that the place is heavily saturated in terms of the rains and everything. And there are persons, Madam Speaker, all over that have properties, but they're either not insured, or persons are so far behind with their insurance premiums that they are on a payment plan, basically, Madam Speaker. And I know many persons, Madam Speaker, tell the insurance companies, they said, what you're trying to charge me a year, I gonna pay you month to month, because I can't afford to pay this premium together with my mortgage and still be able to live. So, Madam Speaker, it is something that we must address. It is something that a conversation should be started around and see what is possible for us. I know it was a little bigger stage, but in Florida, Madam Speaker, we had the round table of insurance providers that we would get together every 3 months, every quarter, and have discussions, and industry partners would dictate, what we're trying to achieve. But Madam Speaker, some sort of conversation must happen to take place, because you're going to have a lot of property in the BVI that persons own that they just can't insure. Businesses is going to be the same thing, Madam Speaker. And I must say this, that it may not be favorable, but when I got into insurance and banking, the common theme was insurance is there to make money, and make more money. And the amount of money they pay out is supposed to be a drop in the bucket compared to the amount they get in. But, Madam Speaker, we have to create a balance for the people of this territory, because not just insurance, the cost of living continues to increase, the cost of everything is continue to increase, and our wages, Madam Speaker, is not equaling out. So we will find ourselves at a deficit where persons will have to make even tougher decisions in what we are prioritizing for our well-being. And God forbid, if there was another storm, if there was another hurricane or anything, any catastrophic event, Madam Speaker, it would put a lot of people in a very dire state. So, Madam Speaker, I'm hoping that even in the committee stage, that we will have some sort of discussion or some sort of talk around what the industry, what the commission and the team at the Ministry of Financial Services are thinking about, what is in train or in plan to try to address it, and see how we can bring together to get better rates and get some sort of control under these increasing prices. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. I recognize the Minister for Health and Social Development, Honorable Vincent Wheatley.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I want to first commend my colleague, the Deputy Premier, for successfully bringing these bills to the House and these very timely topics. I know this is not quite what we're here for in terms of local insurance, but the issue of insurance and banking, like you heard before, are very vexing issues. Madam Speaker, I have some experiences that I've seen. It must be very much widespread, as the insurance since the hurricanes have gotten so high that persons are making some, I would say almost bad decisions. That is, they're left almost with no choice but not to insure their houses. You have your mortgage on one side and insurance on the other side. And Madam Speaker, what I saw since the hurricanes, I saw a particular gentleman, it happened more than once, his mortgage payment expired at the end of August in 2017. And he was so happy not to have a mortgage, he also decided at that time not to renew his insurance. End of August 2017. This was a retired person. 1 week later, his house is destroyed. And because you have to ask yourself,
Why did he think that not insuring the house was a good thing? It was simply the cost of it. The cost you're spending on insurance when you look at over time is prohibitive. And when you look at persons who have, let's say, who have like apartment buildings, because I've seen this also, and their insurance is, when it goes from maybe, because I have one case that I know of, I think the insurance was about 4,000 or 5,000. It's now 14,000. That's a huge jump to go from 1 year to the next. What do? We have two choices. Either eat that yourself, you pay insurance, or you pass it on to the tenants. And what that has done is put some real hardship on persons in apartments. You find maybe your salary for a month, maybe 3,000, but then your rent alone is now 1,800 because the landlord has passed his savings, his expenses onto the landlord. So we can't ignore this. It's going to be a major deterrent to persons seeking to get into this kind of business because of the insurance deterrent. But it also affects the quality of life for those persons. I've seen this with my own two eyes. The apartments that certain persons could have afforded, they can no longer afford them. But those apartments are not vacant because other persons with more income, more disposable income, are now displacing these persons. I met a lady just Tuesday, I think it was, Monday, just Monday I met this lady. And she said to me, I told her they're living in cars. I will be the first version to live in my car. I can't afford this anymore. That was Monday this weekend. So persons, because of the insurance and the issue, the mortgages, and we have to raise all of this here, it's driving people quickly into desperation. She told me she will live in her car and she will report to work. She's sorry, but she has no choice. So that's something I think we can ignore much longer. I don't know what can be done. But that's something we can ignore much longer, Madam Speaker. We're going to find more and more persons being forced out of apartments because they can't afford them. But the apartments will not remain vacant, and that is the sad part. So you're going to be in an apartment one day, and the next day walking across and seeing somebody else in your apartment, simply because you couldn't afford the rent, because of all this domino effect of one thing leading to the other. So whether I commend the Deputy Premier for this and bringing these things to being compliant with the CFATF and those other things there, we have to look, like you heard before, what is the local condition under these same topics? So people are struggling in some cases because of these things. So Madam Speaker, with those few words, I'll take my seat. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other member? I call upon the Deputy Premier to wrap up.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I thank my colleagues all for their very helpful comments on the much broader conversation in relation to insurance, BVI insurance. Madam Speaker, starting with the leader of the opposition, as I've said to him before, it has to be, the issue of insurance has to be a wider conversation. It has to be a national conversation. And the member for the 6th suggested that we form a committee to address this serious issue, and it may very well be the way to go. But, Madam Speaker, if you will permit me, during the committee stage, as I believe my colleague on this side suggested, that there be a conversation about it, I'm very pleased that the Chief Executive Officer of the Financial Services Commission is with us, and I would ask, with your permission, during the committee stage, that he shares with us some of his experiences on this matter. Madam Speaker, a couple of other points I'd like to make in relation to the broader conversation about insurance, the broader discussion about the high cost the prohibitive cost of insurance in the British Virgin Islands. The Minister of Health made reference to the very high cost, and I don't know how many persons saw a very, I suppose it was BVI humor with somebody living in a very nice car, very beautifully appointed car on Facebook. But it was just humor, as I said before, but it has gotten to that point where people really cannot afford to pay the high cost of rent. I want to now, Madam Speaker, very briefly speak to the point raised by the member from the 6th in relation to the minimum wage and the minimum wage increase. And this, of course, takes effect at the end of November. And I want to assure the member that it's not even behind the scenes, but we are feverishly in the ministry working towards making sure that the money stays where it is, the increase for employees, it stays in the pockets of the employees. And on the other hand, that the employers can afford to pay this increase. I'm not going to go into any details on it right now, but in a month or so, I should be able to report on where we are with the various meetings we are having, both with government and the private sector in relation to the minimum wage. Madam Speaker, I am keenly looking forward to the committee stage when we will not necessarily have to make any amendments to the bill before us, but we might have a broader discussion, with your permission, on this matter of insurance. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Insurance Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a second time.
This bill may be cited as Insurance Amendment Bill 2024.
Pursuant to Standing Order 55-1 of the House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands, the bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to consider it clause by clause. House is now in committee. I call upon the Deputy Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Insurance Amendment Bill 2024 has passed through committee without amendments. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill entitled Insurance Amendment Bill 2024 be read a third time and passed. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Is there a second?
Madam Speaker, I rise to second the motion.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled Insurance Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
This bill may be cited as Insurance Amendment Bill 2024.
The bill has been read a third time and passed. I call upon the Premier Minister of Finance to move a motion.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill shortly entitled Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024 be read a second time, and I will now explain the objects and reasons. Madam Speaker, I rise today to present for the consideration of this honorable House the bill entitled Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Act 2024. This bill is of critical importance as it seeks to address the significant deficiencies within our current legislative framework, specifically concerning our obligations under international anti-money laundering and counter-financing of terrorism standards. Earlier this year, the Mutual Evaluation Report of the Virgin Islands was published, providing a detailed assessment of our compliance with these standards. The report identified areas in need of enhancement, particularly in relation to Recommendation 7 of the Financial Action Task Force, which focuses on targeted financial sanctions related to proliferation financing. The proposed amendments are designed to address these recommendations and ensure that our jurisdiction aligns with global expectations. Madam Speaker, the amendments proposed in this bill make significant changes to the Proliferation Financing Prohibition Act 2021. Firstly, the bill reclassifies the liability for dealing with assets owned, controlled, or held by or on behalf of designated persons or entities as a strict liability offense. This means that any engagement with such assets will constitute an offense regardless of the intent or knowledge of the individual or entity involved. Secondly, the bill eliminates the current financial threshold of $10,000 for the mandatory reporting of financial transactions involving designated persons or entities. This amendment will require that all transactions, regardless of the amount, be reported to the Financial Investigation Agency. Moreover, any person who becomes aware of dealings or attempted dealings with such assets will be obligated to report them to the FIA. Additionally, the bill enhances the powers of the FIA, allowing the agency to issue comprehensive guidelines on matters related to proliferation financing, thereby strengthening our overall regulatory framework. Madam Speaker, while the implementation of these amendments will have financial implications, particularly for the FIA and by extension the Financial Services Commission and the financial institutions operating within our jurisdiction, these measures are crucial for maintaining the integrity and reputation of our financial sector on the global stage. This may necessitate the allocation of additional resources for staff, training, system updates, and other necessary adjustments to ensure the effective implementation of these changes. Financial institutions may also face increased compliance costs as they work to meet the new requirements, including the removal of the financial threshold and the introduction of strict liability offenses. However, Madam Speaker, it is anticipated that these costs will likely be outweighed by the benefits of enhancing our compliance with international standards, which will help safeguard our jurisdiction's reputation and potentially attract further international business and investment. It is important to note, Madam Speaker, that these amendments are not expected to have any direct budgetary impact on the central government. The financial burden associated with these changes will be managed by the Financial Services Commission, and there will be ongoing monitoring to ensure that the implementation does not impose undue financial strain on the institutions involved. In closing, Madam Speaker, this bill represents a necessary step towards bringing our territory into full compliance with international AML CFT standards. I urge members of this Honorable House to support and approve the bill entitled Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Act 2024. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Members, the floor is now open for debate. Any member wish to debate? I recognize the leader of the opposition, Honorable Ronnie Skelton.
Madam Speaker, there seems to be a big deviation. First, let me say, Madam Speaker, I rise to give my perspective on the Proliferation of Financing Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024. Madam Speaker, I noticed in the bill under clause section 7 clause 4 that the bill seeks to basically put all monies under suspicion. Even the United States, the great nation that we all look to, still have $10,000 as the limit. It doesn't prohibit them from questioning you if you have less. But here it is, we are erasing the $10,000 and making it an obligation on anyone who feels that someone is doing something wrong with $1 to report this matter to the FIA. Madam Speaker, are we not taking it a bit too far? Is this the international standard? I don't think it is. I don't think it is, because still when you go, they ask you some simple question if you apply for a visa, they ask you these questions if you're traveling with $10,000 or more. But here it is, we're erasing it. Are we not doing something so bad? I understand even now that businesses submit deposits of $10,000 or more. If the banks feel that it's questionable, then they report it to the FIA. Any suspicious transaction, and they have thousands of suspicious transactions going to the FIA. This is going to overwhelm the system. I think if you read the clauses and you try to put them together, and the Premier says that this is international standard, I don't think it is. Somebody needs to give me a piece of paper showing me that they have erased the $10,000 threshold. Because this clause sends us a serious message, because it puts now the obligation on everyone to report, and if you don't report it based on the other clauses, you yourself can be held accountable. And we all run businesses, not all of us, but we run businesses where people come and you give receipts, you give everything to the bank. So is this really something that we should be doing? Is this really the international standard, or this is taking it a bit far? Madam Speaker, the rest of the bill I don't really have a comment on, but all of the bill hinges on that clause. So we got to be careful, Madam Speaker. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Any other member? I call on the Premier to wrap up.
Madam Speaker, I want to thank the Leader of the Opposition for his intervention. And just to say, Madam Speaker, it's important to note that it's not every single person under 10,000. It is specifically designated persons. And what I would say, Madam Speaker, is that we have between 350 and 400,000 companies. And we have a responsibility as a responsible member of the international financial system to ensure that those persons do not use our companies for any illicit purpose. And certainly, Madam Speaker, these actions that we take do not come out of thin air. They come after an assessment of the risk posed through the use of our companies because of what's happening in the world. The world has proliferation financing. Persons are seeking to finance nuclear weapons and all types of different things. They have terrorist financing. We have money laundering. We have all types of different illicit activities. So, and this is in keeping with the standards of the Financial Action Task Force. As the Deputy Premier has eloquently illustrated before, we had a mutual evaluation report, and this mutual evaluation report has identified areas that needs to be strengthened. We've taken those recommendations very seriously, and we have put forward a number of pieces of legislation which allow for us to strengthen these areas of weakness. And one thing, of course, through the exercise that we knew had to be strengthened was the regime of being able to monitor the suspicious activity of designated persons who may have transactions under 10,000, but when you look at them as they accumulate, may go over $10,000. And of course, it's for us to ensure that we do not allow any wiggle room for those designated persons to have this level of activity without being properly monitored. So, Madam Speaker, these amendments are in keeping with the standards of the Financial Action Task Force, and as responsible players in the global financial system, we are strengthening these areas. But certainly as the witnesses come, as we go into committee stage, Madam Speaker, I'm sure they'll be willing to expound on the rationale for this particular amendment. And I thank all the members for their support, Madam Speaker.
Honorable members, it has been moved and seconded that the bill shortly entitled Proliferation Financing Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a second time. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. I call upon the clerk to read the bill for a second time.
This bill may be cited as Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition, Amendment Bill 2024.
Pursuant to Standing Order 55-1 of the House of Assembly of the Virgin Islands, the bill now stands committed to a committee of the whole House to consider it clause by clause. House is now in committee. Committee now resumes, House will now resume its sitting. I call upon the Premier.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I beg to report that the bill entitled Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024 has passed through committee without amendments. Madam Speaker, I move that the bill entitled Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024 be read a third time and passed.
It has been moved and seconded that the bill entitled Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024 be now read a third time and passed. Those in favor?
Aye.
Those against? The ayes have it. The motion is passed. I call upon the clerk to read the bill a third time.
This bill may be cited as Proliferation, Financing, Prohibition Amendment Bill 2024.
The bill has been read a third time and passed. At this time, members, we will take the recess and resume tomorrow at 10 a.m. We will recess until 10 a.m. tomorrow.